So we have that training coming up. If anybody's interested, you can reach out to me. And of course, NADP members get a special discounted rate for the training. And I think that's about it on the CDS part. I think that we're ready to get going with our amazing presenter today, Eddie Stevens.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. I want to tell you that Eddie spoke at our very first conference in 2019 on this topic, and we had such good feedback from that we wanted to present it to you all again. So we're really excited to bring our presenter today will be Eddie Stevens. He's a board certified family law attorney who has practiced family law in Palm Beach County for his entire legal career. With 23 years of litigation experience, Eddie specializes in high conflict, high asset divorce cases. He focuses on helping clients with domestic legal issues such as property division, business valuation, child support and spousal support, child custody and visitation, post-judgment modifications, child relocations, same-sex marriages, and both prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. Eddie's earned the AV Preeminent Peer Review rating by Martindale-Hubbell, a professional rating indicating the highest ethical standards and professional ability. Eddie has also been selected for inclusion in the Best Lawyers in America, a peer-reviewed publication recognizing the top 4% of attorneys in the country. So you guys are in great hands today. And Eddie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to this presentation yet again.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Vicki, for the invitation. And I see a couple familiar faces, but for the most part, I don't know many of you. So very nice to meet you all. Vicki asked me to speak about a topic today that's very near and dear to my heart. And if you are in the divorce profession, we certainly think you need to be informed about these issues, regardless of how you fit into that profession, whether you're a financial attorney, mental health. These are all issues that I think if we understand, we will do better at our job and be better counselors for our clients. Let me get my share screen going. In addition to being an attorney, I am also, 6 years ago, I discovered the Center for Child Counseling, and I have been a board member there ever since. And they work a lot with children, adverse childhood experiences, which is what we're going to talk about. And I had a personal calling to help this organization that we will also talk about. But they are a 501c3 local in Palm Beach County. And not only are they, I guess, on the front lines of dealing with trauma. For example, if someone is put into foster care, we go out and evaluate the situation, see what services the child needs. But we're also trying to create a trauma-informed community. And we think it's a whole lot better to deal with problems up front than at the back end of it, where it's usually too late to do much help. When someone breaks their arm, they usually go to get it fixed, right? It's an inconvenience. There's usually some pain involved. You get sidelined for a couple weeks, but society expects you to go to a doctor, get an x-ray, and if it's broke, put a cast on that thing. And if it's your foot, you get the boot. Who's had the boot yet? But there's no stigma when it comes to fixing a broken bone. So when we talk about mental health in the United States, there's a huge stigma, and people don't like to talk about mental health. People don't seek treatment for mental health when oftentimes they should. And it's basically because we created a society that doesn't like to talk about these issues. So just having this discussion and listening to me and maybe even putting yourself in a vulnerable position for an hour, I appreciate that. And you'll see how that will move this cause, because we're going to talk a little bit about the science, a little bit about the practical aspects of it. And at the end, you'll see how it all connects together. But what would you do if you knew that there was a way to protect your family against future health problems? I would do almost anything to protect my family. We know that exposure to adverse childhood experiences is the greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today. This was a quote from the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. This came out just before COVID hit, and COVID. I just got a message on my phone during the introductory comments that Palm Beach County has just declared a state of emergency because of COVID-19. So we're facing new stresses that our people, our tribe has never ever faced in our lifetime. And what that's doing to our children now, it's exacerbating these issues that we had before. I think if you look around, you notice people are on edge much more than they have ever been before. And we all have to practice a little more patience with each other. And within the divorce field, it's been a busy year. I don't know if you've experienced the same influx of issues as we have, but COVID has created all kinds of ways for us to get out of our normalcy and be pulled into something that we're not comfortable with, like Zoom. How many times have you heard you're on mute? I heard it this morning at a UMC hearing. No matter how many times I hear it, I'm still going to be on mute. So hopefully there's some normalcy coming in the near future. I pray, I hope, because we're all fatigued and we all need kind of a break. Let's get back to ACEs at the end of the 1990s, we realized that there was a connection to those folks who are exposed to what's called toxic stress. And we'll talk about what that means in a second, as a child. And that fact significantly increases the chances for that young person to develop a chronic illness, mental illness, or even have a 20-year shorter lifespan. And we now know that all of this kind of stems to childhood trauma, abuse, neglect, a parent or parents with a substance abuse issue. So looking at the science of it, we have a brain that develops. It develops over time. And by the time you turn 26, whatever you have in that brain is pretty much developed. So we have a 26-year period to develop normal brains. People that experience adverse childhood experiences, and we'll talk about the specific list of what that is in a second, their development is disrupted. People who are victims of adverse childhood experiences, they usually develop very unhealthy coping mechanisms: smoking, overeating, drinking, substance abuse, self-medication, addicted to shopping, gambling, any addictive traits. This helps them cope with the issues they experienced as a child. And we all know that chronic unrelieved stress suppresses the immune systems. And we have the backup science now to kind of teach us exactly what that means and how it affects us. All of us on this call today know that adult violence, domestic, child abuse, addiction, chronic disease, depression, anxiety, these are all lingering issues that have their roots typically in early childhood trauma and ACEs. I have been working specifically with this organization for 5 years now to kind of spread the word, and I will tell you why I have a personal connection to this as well. So the original science out of an obesity study, they found out a whole lot of people in that study had been victims of some type of sexual abuse. And then they expanded that and created what was the original ACEs survey. And this has been out now, I guess, 1999, 2000. And basically, they looked at 10 factors, and they're on the screen. For every yes, you get an ACE point. For if you have more than 4 of these, there is a high likelihood that it will impact your life. So looking at them: emotional neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, your parents divorcing, domestic violence in your house, someone around you has substance dependence, someone around you has mental illness, one of your family members is incarcerated, and physical neglect. The scientists have correlated these findings with health outcomes, and we know that folks that have 4 or more of these points, their likelihood of health issue raised by about 50% in their life. So let's get into the science of it a little bit. And what is toxic stress? Stress can be a very good thing. Me getting ready to talk to 50 people might release some hormones in my body to make me a little nervous, and I might use that energy so I give a really compelling presentation. That's positive stress. But too much stress, it can be very harmful. Tolerable stress, that's probably what most of us are dealing with. And then there's toxic stress. And that's where you have prolonged activation in stress responses that actually it interferes with the neural development of a developing brain. Toxic stress hinders a child's brain development and leads to horrible outcomes. So at the Center for Child Counseling, we believe in playful, helpful, hopeful experiences. We use play therapy, and we work on building resiliency, because building resiliency allows you to overcome the stresses that adverse childhood experiences bring. Your brain there's neuroplasticity there. You can heal your brain, but you can also damage it, because high doses of these hormones disrupt your brain. And the hormones specifically, they're, when you get that little adrenaline rush or cortisol rush, that's because your brain is telling you you have a flight or fight response. For example, if you see a bear in the woods, and your brain's going to release some hormones, and it's going to tell you to run the heck out of there. And it could even give you superhuman strength. And that's a really good thing if you're in a forest with a bear. But what happens when the bear is there every day and doesn't leave? That's where we have a problem. And the impact of these hormones on a developed brain actually impacts what's going on. So what you're seeing now is a PET scan of a healthy brain of a child that, no ACEs, normally developing. And then you see a PET scan of a child who basically has suffered neglect and abuse. And you can see very obviously that there are some significant neurological issues. And this is all caused by too much prolonged exposure to these hormones. This affects your frontal lobe of your brain, which is where you develop your ability to, your argumentative part, it controls your relationships with other people. So if you don't have this proper foundation in your brain, you're already at a disadvantage. You're not going to be able to regulate relationships. You're going to have a very difficult time. But the good news is, like I said, the brain is neuroelastic, and we can get better. I will share with you a personal story, and I don't really talk about this too much in big open forums. But I come from a traumatic family. Both my parents suffered from substance abuse, and when I was 15, I actually witnessed my mother take her life. The chances that I was going to be a good outcome were very, very skeptical. Fortunately, in I'm 50 now. This is way before we understood the science. Fortunately for me, I had a community around me that took an interest in me and helped me and kept me on the right path. Because without proper guidance, someone that had those, and both my parents had substance abuse issues, and really the trauma, as strange as it sounds, stopped when my mom passed away when I was 15, and that's when I had my first dose of normalcy of life, where every day I didn't wake up, dealing with a bare situation. And through the help of many people that just cared about me, I overcame my own obstacles and pretty evolved, pretty aware of myself. I understand the issues that I need to deal with, like working in such a toxic job. I can't bill more than 40 hours a week because I need to make time for myself, and I need to make time to detoxify myself from what we do. But also, having gone through everything that I have gone through, kind of gives me a tolerance to dealing with toxic issues, and it really allows me to help my clients in ways that I never wanted to become a divorce attorney. This just kind of happened. As a little kid, my goal wasn't, let's become a divorce attorney and go look at 61075 and split up some property. I wanted to be a rock star, but as fate would have it, following my path and where it led me, this has been an ideal occupation for me. It's stressful, but I love helping people. And maybe some of that is rooted in the fact that when my mom needed help, I wasn't old enough or had the skill set to really make any kind of meaningful difference. So now I'm dedicated to making a difference, not just to clients, but with the work that we're doing today. I don't get paid for making this presentation, and hopefully I am preaching to the choir, and there's more than most of you, I pray, know about adverse childhood experiences. And if not, hopefully this is kind of an eye-opening moment. Once I realized my path and I understood it a little, I understood the science of it, it made a whole lot more sense to explain certain behaviors in my life and why I acted the way I do, and I was able to correct them. So the Center for Child Counseling made a little video about this. I will show you. And this makes me kind of shy, but again, we're all friends here, so don't be too critical. We're all in a safe place.
I didn't know what was going on in Eddie's life at the time.
Hi, my name is Eddie Stevens. I'm an equity partner here at Ward Damon.
After many years and reconnecting on Facebook, that I learned about all of his struggles and all that he had been through.
My mother died when I was young, and I was very fortunate to have some great people around me. Specifically, I remember my drama teacher.
I'm Julie Peterson. I am Eddie Stevens' drama teacher at Gulliver Preparatory High School in Miami. Eddie was sort of a shy, quiet little guy.
In my time of pain, I actually wanted to be a theater geek, and I wrote a play.
One day Eddie walked into my office and he had a script that he had written, and he wanted to have the script produced in our season. And it showed such insight into character and human emotion. And he did a fantastic job with that play and toured it throughout the city.
It was about someone who lost their parent. And had she not believed in me and given me that opportunity, I don't think I would have been someone who believes in himself.
I just saw a young man with many gifts and talents, and I realized that they needed to be nurtured.
Today, I am sitting here as a owner of a law firm where things could have been quite differently, but for one random individual being in my life. So yeah, they dug up my drama teacher, and that was really when I saw that for the first time, like it kind of, it might be an oversimplification, but it's so true. You know, if someone takes an interest in someone, it could mean all the difference. So not only do I understand these issues and I employ them in my practice, but you know, on my spare time, I find it very meaningful to intentionally put myself in the way of people that may need someone like me to talk to, whether it was camping with Boy Scouts or mentor. I run a program for 11th graders. I work with all of these children in Center for Child Counseling and help them. And literally through my practice and just putting myself in places where people could reach out to me, I have dealt with hundreds of youths, and I know I'm not a mental health professional, but just being able to talk to them and knowing that, you know, having them see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you could be a pretty successful person despite whatever unfair obstacles are put before you. So that's really meaningful to us. Let's go back to the brain slide. I love this slide. Sorry, I just love slides, and the brain is, I digress. If it was not for the outside support that I got from my youth, and it wasn't just my drama teacher, that's a little bit of a oversimplification, but I know my chances for a healthy and stable life would have been deeply diminished. I am a true living example of how the impact of ACEs can be stopped dead when someone is willing to fight for you. So there's hope. The realms of ACEs. This is so ACEs are not just those 10 things anymore. Science has taught us that you know, within the household, there can be all of these issues, and that was pretty much the original 10. But we have community issues like food scarcity or poverty or access to education. And we really want to look at this through an equity lens. And there's a lot of community factors that need to be addressed. We also have environmental factors. Look at Haiti this week. I mean, living through that, I can't imagine that would not change your life forever. Living through an experience like that, the horrible experience these folks in Miami with the building collapse at Surfside, just things that are out of our control. Yet I remember living through Andrew and locking myself in a car in a garage so we would be safe. And you know, that memory stays with me today. So if these are all the issues, and here's another way of looking at them, I'm not going to get too much into this, but these are all the things that are going wrong, not only for children, but in our community. And these are the things that we think we need to pay attention to kind of correct this problem. And my favorite Hamilton quote, this is not a moment, this is a movement. So these are the things that we can do to fix these issues. We can create resiliency building experiences. and we can create positive community environments. So this is why we are out there talking to sector leaders, attorneys, professionals. These are things that we can do right now to address this issue. You would think that with all of this knowledge right now, 20 years later, they would screen for ACEs at a pediatric checkup. Well, that's not their best practices right now, but we're trying to change that by creating a trauma-informed community, by letting everybody know that this is a health issue and we have to look at it a little differently. ACEs don't just impact the poor. 1 in 11 middle-class folks out there have an ACE score of 6 or more. If you look at the original 10, and if you were doing an ACE score for yourself, and if you have more than 4 of those experiences, it might lead you to question how you can deal with some of those issues if you are struggling. We have a great website, centerforchildcounseling.org, and there are all kinds of great therapists out there. I know from personal experience. I don't know if I said this just now, but my score was 9. And so I am blessed that I have a job that I go to every day and a family. My 2 children have never seen violence. They have never seen me impaired by drug or alcohol. And I would like to think that I have stopped the generational problem that was in my family. So ACEs are common. Most of us have at least one of these experiences. I mean, the divorce rate is over 50%, and that's one right there. They don't typically occur alone. The more ACEs you have, the greater the risk is all of these issues. And these issues kind of lead to early death. High doses of exposure to ACEs dramatically increases the risk of 7 of the 10 leading causes of death in the United States. I think if you have an ACE score of 6 or more, you are 3,000 times more likely to kill yourself than if not. It is, so here are some of the behaviors, if you have 4 or more of ACEs, this is why I say, that's the number you have to look out for. You're twice as likely to cope by smoking. You're 3 times or likely to have more than 50 sexual intercourse partners, 7 times more likely to be an alcoholic. And if you're an attorney too, that triples the score there. You're 10 times more likely to abuse drugs. You're 12 times more likely to attempt suicide. If it goes up to 6, it increases exponentially. So these are all reasons why to be self-aware, why we should be addressing these things. For those asking if you can have a copy of my slides, they are very well done. I will ask, I did not create them. The Center for Child Counseling created them and I just stole them. But I will ask them and see if we can get you some. I know there are some materials that went out with to the group, or at least that we provided. And my name and email and all my contact information is in the chat box. So I am happy to continue this conversation. If you know people that need training, we do training. We train teachers for free. And there's just a whole different way of dealing with children than historically we have done. And we call that a way of being. So that way of being is how we are training different sectors how to interact with children. Like we're training doctors. Why don't you screen for ACEs? So, if a child is presenting these issues, we can get them the appropriate services. So the whole thought of this is that we are trying to create a shift in the way we think of this problem. We don't want to have the stigma, what's wrong with you? You know, that who wants to answer that question? But rather, what happened to you? And that's a much better question to elicit how we got to where we are today. Because likely it's not something wrong with them. It's an experience that they went through that now impacts them, that we have to deal with. We really have to look at this like it's a public health crisis, and that's what's going to create this shift in thinking. If I asked all of you today that are on this Zoom who had a parent with a mental illness, who had a parent that drank too much, I know a lot of hands would come up. So why don't we do something about this, right? Dealing with the after effects are devastating. Primary prevention is the only reasonable option, and each adversity affects health. It impacts you for the rest of your life. And what is the societal cost to address those problems when they develop later in life? Wouldn't it be better just to create a system that deals with this while we can still deal with it? I see Vicky posted in the chat how to find your ACE score. So that's a really neat. I don't ask you to share your score, but you should definitely take the test and figure out what's going on in your own system. So buffering the impact, you know, what are we doing to build this resiliency? And there's a concept called orchids and dandelions. Orchids are very delicate flowers. A dandelion is like a weed and can grow out of a crack of cement. We need more dandelions out there, and we have to do that by creating an environment where these kids could thrive. Part of that is the most important is nurturing real responsive relationships, so these kids know they're not alone and they have someone to connect. We have lots of interventions to help children rebuild the parts of their neural development that have been neglected. But again, we have to do this before these kids turn 26 or we're going to lose them. But I think the most important thing is creating a community that understands this and it's willing to engage in a discussion like this. So, you know, I hope you're listening to this, and you know, there are so many ways to help, and the easiest way is just talk to a kid and really listen to what they're saying. And we'll give you a couple other ways you can help too. Our mission at Center for Child Counseling, building the foundation for playful, helpful, blah, 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 helpful and hopeful living for children, families, and communities. We do that right now. We have a budget of $5 million, which is, I guess, what you would consider like a medium-sized 501c3. We never thought we would get so big, and frankly, we wish we weren't so big, but the fact that we are shows this incredible need. And we counsel children in Palm Beach County, but the training we do now is we're able to do it throughout the nation. So a lot of things that we are doing in addition to training different sectors. One really cool thing that we did is we saw a school that had 27 Baker Acts in it, and 27 Baker Acts. Can you imagine how stressful it would be for, I mean, if you're an elementary school kid to be institutionalized? A Baker Act is the Florida term for involuntary mental institutionalization. So this one school had 27 of them in elementary school in just 1 year. And we looked at those numbers and said, we got to do something about that. So we raised money and we embedded 3 therapists in the school to help these kids as best as they could. Cost us $100,000. And in a year, the Baker Acts went from 27 to 1. So we thought that was pretty amazing, instant result, empirical data that you could look at and show that this really does make a difference. So the school gave us $1 million and we did 10 schools the next year. So in addition to dropping therapists in schools, we do education and prevention services. I'm just an attorney, but we have mental health counselors that could actually teach teachers, how to better handle students that have these issues. So instead of these issues escalating, they have the skill set to de-escalate them. We train professionals. We care for families that cannot afford counseling. Last year, we provided care for 306 families. We do the childhood trauma response program. That's where if a kid, as soon as a kid goes into foster home, we are out there assessing the situation, again, seeing what that child needs. What you can do. So this is the stuff we were talking about. We can win this war on ACEs, but we have to build a trauma-informed community where all adults who play a role in the lives of children are ACEs aware, surrounding them with support and protection. We know how to build trauma-informed communities. This is why you are here today as leaders in our profession that provide guidance, education, and advice to parents and their children. We're doing our part to prioritize their needs in the center of this fight. There are other things you can do. You can send letters to people who are in charge of driving policy and tell them that this is something that's important. You can get trained. You can understand the impact and actually how to help. You can invest in ACEs economics. We raised $5 million last year to fund all of our efforts. And we need dollars to continue what we're doing. You can push the agenda and form an ACEs action committee in your community to raise awareness and activism right there. And if you don't want to fund what we're doing, fund whatever is working in your community. I know this is a very diverse crowd and geographically we are all over the place, but there's got to be something like what we're doing in your community and you have the ability to support it. So COVID, just when we thought we were getting out of it, it brings us back in like a horrible horror movie. So it's impacted our kids. And I'm going to show you a quick little news piece on how we are dealing with it.
And if you're a parent or a caregiver to a school-age child, you know firsthand the toll COVID-19 has taken on our kids. And therapists who treat them are having to come up with creative ways to help children who are struggling with their mental health.
These are very simple play materials like paper and crayons and Play-Doh. So let's take 4 of these in different colors.
At the Center for Child Counseling,
I would say we should either pull like something like trouble or sorry.
therapists are putting together special bags.
Each one is packed with love and with a lot of thought about what kids need to do therapy at home.
The kits are for children who are doing therapy from home.
Hi guys.
Hey Aria, how you doing?
Hi.
Like sisters Aria and Asia.
We finally get to see you in person.
I know, it's been a while.
Aria, this is my absolute favorite. This is a worry monster. And you can write your worries on a piece of paper put it in his mouth, and he eats them.
It's amazing to be able to have things for them to do on the computer. She does virtual play therapy sessions, so it's nice to have specific things that she can actually use.
The basis of most of the work that we do is through play. We say that the toys are the children's words. You know through their play what they're doing, what they're going through, how they're managing their emotions. Through telehealth, we were finding that we couldn't do that. So through the kits, we are providing that for children, for families in the homes.
The center's CEO, Renee Lehman, says COVID-19 has changed the game when it comes to mental health among children.
For the last 6 months, it's just been off the charts, and we're getting really some of the highest risk referrals that we've ever gotten. Children, they regulate within their relationships, so parental stress impacts their mental health and well-being. So if a parent is stressed or dysregulated, the child becomes dysregulated. So that's our biggest concern, is how well parents are coping, the stress within the homes, the children that already had mental health issues and how the social isolation is impacting them, and the anxiety that we're seeing, the depression, the fears.
We're all facing this trauma together. You know, no one planned on 2020 to look like this.
Therapist Stephanie De La Cruz says it's important for parents and caregivers to set the tone within the home.
It is really important for us as adults, as the caregivers of these children, to be clear about how we're feeling. You know, we want to model to them that it is okay to be sad, it is okay to be anxious during this time, but what can we do together to help you during this time so it's not paralyzing, so it's not limit you from being able to do your schoolwork or to be able to contact your friends, even though it looks a little bit different right now. So one of the first things I like to say as a word of encouragement is that it's okay to not be 100% perfect. You know, as a parent, I think that sometimes we have.
Eddie, you're muted.
I did that on purpose. It was, you see how we did a full circle?
And if you're a parent or a caregiver
Oops,
to a
hold
school
on,
age.
sorry. So we're doing our best. It's not easy. Who knows how to overcome, what's the best way to overcome these challenges, but we're pulling up our sleeves and we are doing our best to help these kids. And, you know, with all these kids being away from school for a year, we're concerned that there's a whole bunch of domestic violence that has probably gone unnoticed. And what impact will this traumatic event in itself have on everybody going forward? So we all just have to be patient, and I would suggest look after yourself.
And Eddie, if I can just interject here, we did a COVID series in 2020, and we had a forensic nurse and a sheriff from Hillsborough County over in Tampa that were our guests, talking about this very thing, domestic violence and the uptick during COVID. So yes, it's super important. I have a question for you about, you know, a lot of the things that we're talking about today is taking care of the children. And you know, for us here at the NADP, children are oftentimes the unseen collateral damage of divorce. No, even here on this board today, all these beautiful faces that you've seen, many of you don't deal with the children and never actually interact with them. So it's really important to understand that some of these things can have bigger impacts. But one of the things that we've talked about, Eddie, is the narcissistic personality disorder, and the impact of childhood trauma on the brain as it develops. Do you have any information on how these types of things impact those types of things as children grow into adults? Because we see a lot of who here deals with narcissists? Anybody? Right. And they're right. So how, and they're very challenging to deal with and manage as clients. And so I'm wondering if you have any insight into that.
I just have 25 years of dealing with people on the antisocial personality disorder spectrum. And if you are a narcissist or worse, you're going to create these experiences. Both of my parents had psychopathy, and that led to these experiences. The experiences are not the root, it's a symptom of the underlying mental health issue, but I am not a mental health professional, and I appreciate there is behavioral modification and therapy after you're 26 years old.
Right, Rich had a behavioral therapy after 26. Did that answer your question, Rich?
I can't answer that because
Oh, you can't, okay.
I'm not qualified. I'm just some divorce lawyer.
Okay, gotcha.
But I will open it up if anyone else has questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Does anybody have anything that
Dr. Chris. Oh, I'm sorry, please. And then Vicki, may I?
Absolutely.
After you.
Thank you. I have a quick question. One of the things they did not see on here was simply death of a parent or death of someone close. Does that not trigger in and of itself at least a point? Or are you there's so many other underlying, what you went through is horrific, but how does the research show on that side?
In my uneducated view, toxic stress is the continued exposure to these hormones, and that's really what's causing the neurological development. Death is a horribly tragic event and could certainly have an impact, but unless there is some other mental condition, that's probably not going to have the same chemical impact on your brain just because you're not in a situation where you're constantly dealing with it. If you have a bad reaction and it leads to some mental issues, then of course anything could be magnified.
Thank you.
Virginia. Dr. Virginia Christ is a mental health counselor. Where are you, Virginia? Virginia Christ? Yeah, you're muted, hon. Where are you?
May we never be muted again.
My picture
Virginia, are you there?
Yes.
You're muted again, Virginia.
You able to unmute her?
I'm trying. Virginia, you're muted, hon. Dr. Virginia Christ, are you there?
I'm trying to unmute.
There you go. Perfect. You're perfect. Don't do anything.
For goodness sakes. I don't know why my picture didn't show up. I'm sorry. But I want to thank you, Eddie, for a very helpful seminar Zoom meeting. But I have been in practice for 30 years and I have not heard of this center. And I deal with couples. And so, of course, they're all in pretty bad shape by the time they get to me. I wish always that they had come in 5 years earlier, but I haven't heard of this center. So I'm so grateful that you spoke today. This is a wonderful thing that it sounds like the best kept secret. So thank you for presenting today. And Vicki and Liz, thank you for finding Eddie and bringing him to us. What you have is a wonderful, wonderful story, both personally and professionally. I'm so grateful that you were vulnerable with us today about what happened in your own life, and to see such a wonderful professional man who's a gentleman and has overcome his own difficulties and has presented like such a beautiful ideal outcome. It's a wonderful thing to see. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Chris. Hopefully most of what I said, I got right.
Yes, you did.
No, we are so grateful. It's very powerful today, right? It was a very powerful presentation. So thank you for that. I want to remind everybody, NADP members, we have CLEs and CFP credits for you. So I have put my email in the chat. It's Vicky, and I'm Vicky with a Y, at thenadp.com, so that we can make sure that you get your credits for this presentation. I'm so grateful. Eddie, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we bring this down? And then we're going to break off into networking groups so that you guys can get to know one another. I'll give you the last word.
Be kind to each other. This is such a stressful profession, and it's so easy to not be kind. So be kind. And thank you for your invitation and everybody's great attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So everyone, for today, we are going to break off into groups. Guests will be with me, and NADP members will go off into their other networking opportunities led by some of our amazing NAP. Nicole will have a group. Amy, are you doing a group, or is
believe
Jason?
it's Kim West,
Amy
Vicky.
Shield and Kim
No,
West? Awesome.
No,
awesome.
it's just Kim West and Nicole for today.
Yes, and we have, yes, we do have CE credits for your CDS as well. So I'm going to actually, do we have that number, Victoria, for CDS credit? Did we come up with that one? Did that one get up yet?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
We'll put that in the chat, please. Thank you so much. So, so we're going to break you all into individual groups. Remember to connect with each other. Virtual coffees are awesome, and use this platform as much as you can. And we'll see you guys next time. Don't forget, we've got another powerful presentation on coercion, unspoken and unseen effects of that in divorce litigation. So please join us next month, and we look forward to seeing you, and I'll see you guys in a few. We'll do some networking. Have a great week and a great month, everyone, and make some connections today.
Thank you.